Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 8:07. It's O'Connor and Company. It's our fourth hour here as we're all fired up and ready to go. Subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss our first 3 hours ever again. Coming up in 30 minutes, the Attorney General of Virginia, Jason Miyares. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
I know for a fact that you have enjoyed the benefit of the great restaurant acumen of our next guest because you love Landini Brothers in Old Town, like most people in D.C.
That is a fact. I am a huge fan. We go there on special occasions.
There you go. Well, it's a special place. Noe Landini is part of the Landini family, of course, and their restaurants, Landini Brothers, the aforementioned, also the Junction Bakery, Fish Market, Pop's Ice Cream. Noe, thanks for joining us this morning.
You guys are too sweet. Good morning.
Well, you must be watching with bemusement and frustration as you see politicians and media personalities talking about how safe D.C. is, how there isn't a crisis here, that sure, there were a couple of bad years, but everything's fine now. You've had firsthand experience as a small business owner dealing with this, haven't you?
You know, we were talking about crime a couple of years ago, and it was hard to get anybody to acknowledge there was a problem. Yeah. Even when you came out with statistics like 1,000 carjackings in 1 year in a small town like D.C., which to me is just absolutely insane. And you know, us as a restaurant group that had a couple of restaurants in D.C., we had a mysterious death that never got solved. We had multiple stabbings, sexual harassment as people, as employees were going into leaving work to go to the parking lots where we would have them escorted at times, depending on the time of the day. And some of this stuff would happen in broad daylight.
Go ahead, Larry. Okay. You know, I think people also, the memories of COVID are sort of fading for a lot of people, but, you know, a lot of restaurants struggled during COVID. Some shut down permanently. And so to have this sort of crime on top of what happened to the restaurant industry during COVID, it's got to be tough. Do you talk to other restaurant owners who feel like,
all
you know,
time.
this really is a breaking point?
All the time. I mean, you know, DC is still not recovered from the pandemic. They have not. You know, we came out of the pandemic, for example, reopening all our restaurants, and then we had to deal with a crime wave that wasn't being addressed, which is now finally being addressed. And I do love the fact that DC leadership are acting like, you know, they're on it now and they're doing something about it. When all this time they haven't even acknowledged it, and half the problem they created themselves. We come out of the pandemic, we have major crime, we have people moving out of the city, we've got you know, commercial office space at like 40% occupancy, less occupancy than what it was. You know, as small businesses, we're looking at numbers that are 30 or 40% lower than before the pandemic when we were killing it. And like, you know, in the restaurant business, if you're down 20%, you're in the red. If you're 40%, you know, you're closing your doors. Like, we have small margins, and we're always getting, you know, it's like I said, DC can't get out of the way. We're always getting picked on. Everybody's got their hand out. They see a busy restaurant, and they think, you know, we're just putting cash in the back, which we're not. They have no idea how much it costs, and especially in DC where, you know, across the river, it costs me 15 to 20% less pound for pound to run a restaurant than it does in D.C. So it's a constant uphill battle.
You know, you mentioned this, and we saw how the district government worked during the pandemic when restaurants were threatened with their liquor license if they didn't comply with vaccine passports and allowing customers to come in. So the reason why you're speaking out, but a lot of your colleagues, a lot of other restaurant owners, they won't do it. And is it because they're afraid of repercussions if they actually tell the truth about how they're affected?
I mean, yes, I think so. It also depends on the group and kind of where they stand politically. And I'm friends with people on both sides, restaurant groups larger than ours, who do very well in the city. Some of the restaurants are doing very well in the city, especially if they're institutions, which we can name a couple, or if they're newer restaurants that, don't even last a year. And I think I saw a statistic the other day that on average we're closing 2 restaurants a week in DC, or at least at one point we were.
Jeez.
And, when we're looking at all these things like, coming out of the pandemic, dealing with the crime wave, then city council throws Initiative 82 at us, which is just going to make it more expensive to the consumer. And that's another thing. All of this gets passed on to the consumer. All of it. Whether it's you want to pay the employees more, fine. If I pay more, you pay more. Food prices go up, it's going to get passed on. We have margins that we have, in every category. There's a formula on what it costs to pay the electric bill and pay your people at the end of the day. So, and crime is no different. That's going to get passed on to the consumer because they're going to make decisions on where they want to go eat or where they don't want to go eat anymore.
I'm so glad you brought up some of those things. It's death by a thousand cuts. In Alexandria, there's a restaurant tax. Then they ban styrofoam containers, meaning you have to buy more expensive things. And then all these other sort of restrictions, and even like parking restrictions in front of these restaurants. I mean, it becomes so difficult for restaurant owners to keep up. I mean, how do you keep up? Do you have a good lawyer, or do you have staff that's dedicated to that? Because just from a consumer standpoint, it's amazing the types of restrictions and regulations they throw at you.
I always kid around. It's one of the busiest people in our company is our lawyer. It is.
That's wild.
I'm telling you, I think I read a quote from Steve Starr that says the office next to his is his lawyer at the company. And I mean, these days it's true because, I mean, just like us, everybody else is paying more. And insurance companies, to litigate, it costs so much money that they're just settling. And people, that has become a thing, right? That's become a culture. And DC is Virginia, the courts are not as tolerant. But in DC, there are people that have made careers out of going from one restaurant or one hotel to another and filing a frivolous case, and the insurance companies just pay. So, and then they talk to their friends or their family or whatever and say, hey, I just made $20,000, and then somebody else tries it, and then it catches on and catches on. So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't end with it. It's every hard line item too. It's not just your cost of goods sold that are just really, really expensive.
And I know that it's got to pain you to sometimes pass that cost on to consumers, but it is hard for a lot of families to go out to eat now. My husband and I always joke that everything's date night because we're not taking the kids out to dinner now. But I it's got to pain you. But consumers have to understand that it's not restaurants just being greedy. It is trying to keep up with these regulations that are put on restaurants by these politicians. So I don't want to make it political, but your vote matters, and it matters to restaurants that are trying to run a business and keep prices at a reasonable level. I mean, is that something that you struggle with talking to your customers about?
I don't know of a single restaurant operator that is running their business in a greedy way.
Right. Right.
I've been doing this a long time, and I can tell you, for a lot of reasons, not just crime in DC, but it is way more difficult to run a restaurant or any type of venue in the hospitality world. It is way more difficult today. And it's like when they just keep piling these things on, I have this kind of joke, but it's true. When the legislation comes out that makes it more expensive to run, or we have issues like crime that is not addressed, or like you said, parking, and all these other things that sometimes we take for granted, but goes ultimately to the decision that a consumer makes when they go out to eat.
Yes.
And especially as it comes to the cost of doing business, I'm always like, okay, that's fine, but the price of the cheeseburger just went up, and I don't want to hear any complaining.
Well, listen.
Huge fan of yours, yeah.
There's one thing to, cope with all of that stuff and the regulations and the cost and everything, but then add to the mix, consumers, your customers, your family. You do treat people like family at Landini Brothers. That they actually have to have the conversation, well, do we want to go out for dinner? Because if we stay too late, then we have to deal with, being afraid, dealing with crime. And putting our life at risk or our car at risk for going out. It's just too much. It's too much for you to have to deal with. We appreciate your commitment to the community, though, by sticking it out and continuing to churn out great meatballs at Landini Brothers.
And oh my gosh, the French toast. My kids are going to be so excited I talked to you. We love all your stuff at Junction.
We just got a great new chef at Junction, Chef
Awesome.
Scott. So look for him the next time you're in there. He's a great guy.
Noe Landini, Landini Brothers. Thank you so much. And save the table
all right,
for
guys.
I'll bring my cigars for Rex, too. Let's not forget Rex, all right? We love Rex.
I will.
Thanks, man.